Hello and welcome back to Tay Radio Marin. I am your host, Javier Vicuna, and today I am joined by my two co-hosts,
Anneli Reyes
and Santi Hernandez.
And on today's show, we have a very special guest. We have Alyssa Tanner, who actually works right here at KWMR. Actually, I should preface everything. We're actually live from KWMR right now. So this is our first time being outside of our studio over in San Rafael. So this is, again, part of this experience. We have Alyssa here, and she is the development director for KWMR. Thank you so much for being with us today. Alyssa, how are you?
I'm good. Thank you all so much for having me. I have gotten so used to listening to Tay Radio that it's just totally wild to see that you all have physical bodies.
Oh, wow, that's funny. Yeah. So Alyssa actually also has her own radio show here at KWMR as well, called Feel Like I Do.
Yeah, yes. And I also do a sports hour with my partner, which is very fun.
Oh, sports hour as well.
Oh, I did not know that.
Okay.
Surprise.
Wow. So we'll get into that. But we also want to talk, so it's Pride Month. So happy Pride Month to everyone.
Woo.
And we want to just talk a bit more about Pride Month with you, and, you know, all of us here. But right before we get into it, I wanted to ask an icebreaker question to everybody here. Is what are your guys' favorite amusement park rides? Yeah. Well, I'll say this first. I'm not the biggest fan of amusement parks and like rides.
You're a little unamused by them?
I am a little unamused by them, I would say.
I can start. For me, I personally like the Medusa.
Oh, man.
Nice, yeah.
The first time I rode it, I was pretty scared, but then once I started opening my eyes and enjoying it, it's really fun.
Yeah. I don't like amusement parks. The rides really scare me. I don't know, the feeling of the drop really terrifies me. And anytime I go into the line, I have a panic attack.
Mm-hmm.
And so I've gone on to them and I've done my best to get rid of that fear. But I don't know the logic. I can do skydiving, but I can't do that. So I don't know what's wrong with me. But I don't really have a favorite one. Maybe just the
Ferris wheel.
Yeah, that would be the not the Ring of Fire. The Ferris wheel. Yeah.
How about you, Alyssa?
I think that it's hard, but you know that one that looks like a UFO and it spins around really fast and gets stuck to the walls?
Yeah, you go up and down. Yeah.
I really like that one because every time I do it, I'm just blown away by how I'm not really able to move. And some people are doing crazy stuff.
I've never thought about why you can't. I've been in that one, but I don't know why. Yeah. It's really interesting. It's an interesting one.
Yeah, you're just being spun so fast. The gravity is just
Yeah.
It's really interesting.
Yeah. I think. So have you been to the Marin County Fair?
I have, yes.
Yeah, so they have that there. I think every year.
Yeah, it's probably the same one and probably really scary, dangerous or something.
Yeah.
I should not be saying that, but I do get freaked out by those things.
Well, those county fair rides, I feel are just sketchy because they build them there, and they they're kind of passed around all over the place, and just
being taken apart, put back together.
It's how much can I really trust that? You know what I mean? So. Yeah, but thank you guys for sharing. As for myself, so I really I think, over by the Santa Cruz Beach Boardwalk, they have the Great Dipper, which I think is what's it called, the roller coaster ride there.
Yeah.
I think that's what it's called, the Great Dipper. I think I really like that one. But when it comes to Medusa, the ones where you're hanging from your feet and stuff like that,
really?
That screws me.
I think the Big Dipper is more scarier than
Really?
Yeah, because it's out of
Yeah,
wood.
it is out of wood. Yeah, you're right. Yeah.
Oh,
so
I don't know. That one's more fun. No, dude, when I'm strapped like this and I'm seeing my...
I feel like I'm flying. That's why I like it.
I wouldn't know. I just look at it and I'm no.
Santi's facial expression right now is
No, I already got my sweaty finger, sweaty hands just thinking about the ride. So.
Yeah, because every time I'm just there, I'm just trying to avoid all that stuff. I'm just trying to enjoy the Dippin' Dots.
Yeah,
and some food and Just walk around and play
I
some
do
carnival
a warm up.
games.
I do a warm up before doing the Medusa.
Ooh.
So.
Oh,
What's
What's the warm up?
give us the.
I guess like little kids rides, like the small ones.
You actually do a warm up.
I see what you mean.
Yes.
Uh-huh. Like you're building up.
Yeah, like a boat. You know those boats that go up and down? That's like a warm up. For
I
me,
see.
personally. Yeah.
Oh, I
Okay,
didn't know that.
that's cool. All right. Well, thank you guys for sharing. Again, we just love hearing about, what life happens, and all these different types of perspectives really open us up to our conversation. So thank you for sharing that, guys. But moving along, so we just wanted to start talking about Pride Month and, of course, supporting the LGBTQ plus community. As I am a big ally, just to preface, did you guys want to preface anything before we begin?
I can add. For me personally, I would like to just put it out there that I'm Christian, and so even though this is about LGBTQ, my goal here is to learn more about your perspective, and also share my perspective as well.
Like a warm up, like the rides.
Yeah.
Like the rides. Yeah, she made the connection. That's such a good way of putting it.
Yeah, that's what I don't want to come up as a surprise if I ask something that may be different perspective from others.
Or might sound like ignorant or anything like that. We're just here to learn.
Yeah.
We're just here to learn.
Totally.
I would say the same. I'm originally from Guatemala in a very small town. So I think growing up here, you start to, not just the LGBTQ plus community, but I think in other areas as well, you start kind of seeing new things. And so for my perspective and background, I grew up a very Christian home as well, but being in this type of work, you're interviewing and getting to know so many different type of people, including people from the LGBT community. And I think it's so important to be an example of sitting in a conversation where we're not attacking each other like who's right or wrong, but rather having a general conversation to learn more about the other person's perspective. And I think that's what we need more today in any conversation that we have, is just listening to one another and getting to really understand and grasp a little bit of the other person's side, and that way we can avoid those wars that usually happen with not just the LGBTQ plus community, but in so many other areas. So I think it's really important that we're all here just to learn from one another. So and thank you so much for being here. I know that it's hard for a lot of people to just sit and have a conversation like this. So I appreciate your time being here with us.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah. So thank you guys for sharing that. Again, for me, I grew up Catholic, but for me personally, I don't really follow a religion. Growing up, because it's just kind of like what my parents taught me, but a lot of it is just like
I'd go for the donuts on Sunday personally.
Oh,
the donuts.
Okay, the
what
donuts.
Oh, here at the church here, the Catholic church that I would go to, we'd get donuts afterwards.
Oh.
And there would just be boxes of those pink donut boxes just lined up. So that was my connection to religion, my connection to Catholicism.
Okay, that's kind of similar to me. I mean, like at our Catholic church in San Rafael, there's always right after, I would look forward to that, because I'd be looking forward to the palatero, like the ice cream guy who would be outside, and the guy who would be selling the corn and all that stuff. Like that was what I was looking forward to. And I'll be honest, when I was in church, I'd be playing on my Nintendo DS while mass was going on. So I did that a lot growing up. So that
you don't need to feel ashamed.
Yeah. But I've also all right, enough about me. But I wanted to start, Alyssa. So, did you grow up here in West Marin?
I grew up in Valley Ford, over by Tamales.
Oh.
Which is technically still West Marin, but it's a little farther out. And my mom's side, they're all old Italian Portuguese dairy folks. So I grew up on a dairy in Valley Ford, and then moved to Inverness, which is the town over from here in Point Reyes, when I was, I think, 10.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
So you guys like grew up with cows?
Yeah, with cows and sheep and
Oh,
yeah.
that's so
That's
fun.
really
That's how I grew up.
It's so lovely.
Yeah, I grew up like we in my backyard, like everything was grown from the animals to the crops, and that's how everything we consumed was from there. So I miss that.
Yeah.
Coming from that
Yeah.
to what I currently live, it's very different.
Me too.
And so how was it like in the school area?
Yeah, I mean, for me, what's so funny is that when you all sent me an email asking if I would come and talk with you all today, I like my immediate thing in my head was like, oh, I'm not queer enough. Like I'm not queer enough to be the person having this conversation with you. Like there's some sort of like weird like spectrum, and I'm just like a casual gay.
Sorry, is that a spectrum that you created yourself? Or
Yeah, like
one
some
that,
weird made up
okay,
thing,
on your
you
own,
know?
uh-huh.
And I was thinking about it and was like, oh, here's some other people that might be a better fit. And then I realized that there's probably a lot of other people that are experiencing those thoughts that I'm having.
Yeah.
About myself, of making myself sort of small in that way or something, you know? So for me growing up, I didn't really understand like what the options of existing were. And in all the schools out here that I went to, in no way did I ever experience like, you know, like any sort of
discrimination?
Yeah, or no, I never really experienced any homophobia. Like that didn't really exist in any sort of language, because they're just, if someone was queer in some way, it was not really something that they were expressing outwardly to folks. So I didn't even understand what was going on. And I think it was 2 weeks ago that you all had a friend of yours on, and he was talking about like the anger he's experienced about racism.
Javier Zamora, I think, is who
Yeah.
you're talking about. Yeah.
Yeah. And that sort of anger that he was talking about of like not understanding, getting it, that's what I had for the most part when I was young. Because I just didn't understand why. I didn't see how anything functioned. It all seemed like it didn't make sense. And so I was going through, you know, the different schools out here, really enjoying everyone I was with, but being really angry that I was not able to connect with folks. I didn't even understand that was happening for me.
Yeah.
I have a question regarding your like schools. Were they very small? And like, just a curiosity, because I think if we compare it to like from our town, like our schools are huge.
Right.
So many students. So I'm just curious to know if like your schools that you've gone through, were they smaller? Like how many around?
Yeah, when I was going to Tamales Elementary, my class I think was 16.
Okay.
And then when I came to West Marin School here in Point Reyes, I think our class was 14.
Oh, okay.
Oh, wow.
And then going to Tamales High School, we had the smallest class of, I think it was 31 kids in our freshman class.
Yeah.
Just
Oh,
pretty small.
That's pretty
Well,
small.
yeah, because you mentioned that, so I kind of, I wanted to kind of see, because I know from our classes are very huge, very big compared to yours.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think, I don't know, just seeing if there's a connection between the schools. And I feel like the places you grew up, they're a little bit segregated from like the bigger
big
towns.
city life,
Yeah.
the big
Bigger towns, yeah.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
I don't know if that has like a connection with people's perspectives and how
Yeah.
they view things. That's it's interesting to me to hear that you didn't experience like homophobia growing up in that way.
Yeah, and it's interesting too, because things have definitely changed in West Marin since I was young and going to those elementary and middle schools. But for the most part, our classes, just in terms of diversity in general, you know, we had one African American student and her brother was African American. Then everyone else, it was like folks that were owning dairies or cattle. And then
I see.
people that were like from like mostly Jalisco that were then working
wow.
and living on those dairies.
Yeah.
And so
Interesting.
that was
so interesting.
pretty
yeah.
much that was the makeup of my class. And like, I remember the first time interacting with like a Chinese person, I was so confused, and learning about their culture when I was young and just being like, wait, what are you talking about?
Okay.
I had no clue.
Yeah.
And so I feel like I might, like, maybe you can correct me, but like you felt like you were in a bubble kind of way, because like it was like people you were surrounded with that you grew up. But how did it feel? Like, have you been to the city in San Francisco?
Yes.
So how did it feel when you like first went to San Francisco?
Well, when I was in high school, I ended up leaving Tamales because it was so small, and that sort of bubble thing you were talking about. And I started to realize that there was other things. So I started going to Marin School of the Arts in Novato, at Novato High School.
I went to Novato High.
It was so fun.
Oh.
My class was huge all of a sudden.
Yeah.
And everyone was so different.
Yeah.
How was that change?
It was awesome.
Yeah.
Like, I felt like I was able to just, I sort of realized that, you know, like everything that was around me was just sort of like made up because that's the way that it had been in the little bubbles that I was in.
Yeah.
And so I was then in this place where all of these people were just making up whatever they wanted. And I never understood that I could create stuff and make stuff up for myself like that, you know?
And when you were in high school, again, you didn't see any, like, since, you know, it was a much bigger school now, so you had more students, everything. Did you witness any homophobia then, or was there a GSA at your school?
What's a GSA? I don't know what that is.
Yeah. So from what I know, I think it's supposed to mean like Gay Straight Alliance.
Oh,
like
I think there was. Yeah.
You know, like a club, like.
Yeah.
Because that's how I got really educated on just the LGBTQ plus community in general. Because in high school, a lot of my friends, they came out during high school. A lot of them came out during high school. And they created the GSA club. And I remember just being in the GSA club, involving myself in, learning about bisexuality, being trans, like, and then asexuality, like all these terms that, again, were completely brand new to me at the time. And again, it just gave me that education that again, I needed, because I needed to understand that too. And just supporting my friends because, you know, when you're growing up, high school is like one thing, right? You have to worry about going to class. You have to worry about homework, after school activities. And then the other thing's like struggling with your own identity, right? It's so tough. So that's how I got to be more educated on that. So it's interesting, again, that there wasn't a GSA. And did you?
There might have been.
I mean, maybe.
I think that there was.
Oh, okay.
That was not my focus at the moment.
I see. And did you go to, where'd you go to college? Or did you go to college?
I did. I went to an art school in Seattle, Cornish College of the Arts. And I never, like the difference for me that I really got eventually is like the difference between like gender identity and sexuality. Because I was not really experiencing sexuality in a crazy way that a lot of other teenagers were. That was not my jam. I was like, I want to make this thing out of clay, you know? That was more of my excitement, not like, I'm going to go find a partner.
Or something. Yeah, I see what you mean.
So, and I still thought then, in that time when I was in high school, that's what... I had those two things mixed up, like what gender identity is and what sexuality is. I hadn't unfurled those yet to get what was happening for me. Yeah. But when I was in college, it was, you know, more of just being in Seattle. It's a very quiet city, really. It's very relaxed.
I've never been to Seattle, but have you guys been to Seattle? No, really.
I heard Seattle is like a lot of rainy, cloudy.
Yeah, everyone's skin looks really nice because there's like zero sun damage.
Oh my god, that's
everyone's
good.
Like glowy vampires. But yeah, it was being there and having, you know, this really like calm and relaxed time to be going through school and working and seeing how other people were doing things and just being in the environment I was in at art school, there was a lot of queer people, and I was just like, oh, okay, cool. Like,
yeah.
Cool for you. Still not understanding that was what was really...
Gotcha. Yeah.
That was something that I fit into as well. So really it wasn't until like I had a few friends that were doing drag pretty regularly at a place that I think might be closed now, actually, in Seattle. And
was it like a bar, like a drag queen bar?
It was called Julia's,
Oh.
and they would do brunch too, which is great. And they would do night things. It was a lovely place. And as I was just spending more time with all of those folks and starting to like realize how I had put myself in my own sort of made up bubble with like these things from the past, like I was still like sort of holding on to stuff. Through having conversations with, like a bunch of really awesome queens and a bunch of just other queer people that were around, I was able to see what that difference between gender and sexuality was. And then was able to be like, oh, okay.
It clicked.
That clicked for me. And it was not like, it's sort of in a way that I was able to understand before for myself. Like some days I would feel what would be called like more masculine, and other days like more feminine, but then a lot of days like neither of those.
Wow. Okay. Yeah.
And so like that sort of confusion for me all started to get cleared up when I realized it had nothing to do with me like being sexual with other people. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Did you guys want to add anything?
No, I'm learning along the way.
Yeah, this is.
I think
really
I want to go to our question, which is because of your observations, and I think it happens a lot to youth today that it's especially high school, college. It's a place where I don't know. I feel like society tells us to have it all figured out, but it's where we're discovering our passions, what we like, what we don't like, and but the pressure of like figuring it all out is there, so it confuses us, and it can lead a lot to depression, and there's so many things that add on to it. So like a lot of youth, especially from our culture specifically, we have a hard time finding their own identity because of like generational traumas, culture, stigmas, and biases. And you sharing a little bit about what you saw, just I'm making the connection of how it is sometimes really confusing, and how that if you're lost, that it's totally fine. I feel like as you kind of started seeing like from high school to college and started making friends and seeing, just made me realize that it's okay if you're lost and confused.
Yeah.
Because I think we are all kind of in that same boat in a way. So I want to just thank you for sharing that part, because it does really connect.
I kind of want to add, I don't know if you guys can relate. I don't know, Javier.
Okay.
But,
right.
Like puberty.
Yeah.
That stage kind of makes you feel uncomfortable who you are. At least for me, in 5th grade, I was like growing my breasts, right? And I didn't feel comfortable because I was much younger than my other friends, and they weren't developing as I was.
Mm-hmm.
So I was like hiding it with like sports bras and stuff like that. And I remember like being a little bit uncomfortable with myself. And especially when I first started my period, I didn't even tell my parents, because I was like, I felt I was too young to have it.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's when I had that transition of like feeling uncomfortable with myself. But like I would wear like sweatshirts. I wouldn't wear my t-shirts out. Like it was like I felt like it was a transition. And it is a transition from a child to a teenager.
Totally, yeah.
So through that experience, I kind of understand a little bit, that transition of like where am I at, like your identity. Mm-hmm. So I don't know if you guys can relate.
Yeah, no, I can totally. And then you start getting these feelings of liking people, and it becomes a little bit like you start to uncover. And I think depending, I love the question we had, because depending on your culture, how you grew up, like it really sets the stage in a way of where you begin your journey. For example, in growing up for me, it was very conservative, so like you can't talk really about your like periods. It's very not conservative, like it's a bad thing, but it's more of like I grew up in an indigenous background, so it's very sacred. Like womanhood is very sacred, and so a lot of things you don't share. So for me, like even telling my mom like liking someone, she kind of opened up for me, because she was the one who's like, it's okay to like someone. Like, you know, so it kind of gave me this idea of like, oh, so this is normal kind of way. But I think because of movies we watch, we're so influenced by what we listen to, what we see, that really plays a big part in where you start your journey. And so connecting it, I want to hear more about your journey and how you connected with the LGBTQ plus community. I know for me, in my case, the connection that I have with the LGBTQ community, it's like I felt like I kind of grew up with the movement in a way, because in elementary school that wasn't heard of. And middle school, the same thing. I think towards the end of middle school, it's kind of funny, because I had a classmate, and she had told me like, oh, look, can you join me? I need support. And I went, and till I was out of high school, I learned that it was the what's it called?
The GSA.
GSA.
Oh, yeah.
But it was because it was the beginning of the LGBTQ plus community in my like community, like where it started kind of bringing its
or becoming more of an open topic at
so
schools.
That's why I say I kind of grew up with the movement in my eyes, because growing up, like it was very rare, and then now it's like more. So I wanted to hear more of like, since we're sharing of kind of us feeling lost and confused in this time period, what was your connection? Or did you just I don't know, I just want to hear, I don't want to say anything I want to hear your connection.
Something that really happened for me is realizing that like we're all these like
Humans?
Weird bags of flesh. Yeah, we're all these humans like on this big rock that's floating in the middle of space. And you know, from there, as time has passed, we've just made up a bunch of stuff. All the words we're using, this material that this table is made out of, you know, this phone, this is a crazy like levels and levels of people just making stuff up and then making more stuff up on it. And within that, there's all these things that have been made up that I really feel like put me in a place of not really understanding, like I didn't understand why these things were real. They didn't make sense to me. And so now what's interesting is with new language being made up for queer people to be able to identify with themselves more easily and with the world more easily, like all of the language that's being made up and all of the things that are being made up around that, it's all just made up. And I feel like and I just feel like I can make up whatever I want, you know. I really don't feel like I'm in like a position. I still use she, her pronouns, but I definitely feel like being non-binary is something that works more for me, but they, them is not something that I really identify with. So I feel like for the most part, for me, the way that I interact with just like queers in general as community is by like having support throughout those systems of what we're all making up, because we make up so much awesome stuff. And you know, really like I don't know, what's a good way to say this? Like I saw this meme the other day that was like the the non-binary urge to overpack because you don't know what gender you're going to show up as. And I was like, oh my gosh, I've done that so many times. And having that like point of relation just from like some random person on Instagram, it cleared a lot of things up for me. Where in the past, I was always like, oh, I'm such a pain because I'm always packing way too much stuff. And I don't need to be feeling like I have to be prepared with all of these things. Like I was making myself feel like shameful and wrong for overpacking, which is ridiculous. And I've been doing that for forever. I was like, oh no, it's just because I exist on this spectrum of whatever I want, you know?
And I love that you brought up that, you know, these labels are just kind of, they're kind of made of, you know what I mean? That's what they are. And it's not necessarily, I feel like a lot of my friends are this way too, where they're like, they don't really like, but that doesn't line up with like how I feel, you know what I mean? It's a very personal thing, your identity. So it's like that, like, you know, you could make up your own term and you could live by that term, you know what I mean? You don't have to fall under any of these labels that, again, it's good that they're there, you know, it helps, I think, create an understanding, but again, it's a very personal thing. So thank you for sharing. That's a really great point.
I made a connection. There was this video I saw of an actress. Her name is Salma. She's very famous Mexican actress, and she said something that I really took in. I was like, wow. And she said, if I start swearing at you in Spanish, and let's say you don't understand Spanish, if I start screaming and yelling at you in that language, and you won't understand what I'm saying, and it won't do anything to you because it doesn't mean anything. But if I said it in English, you would take it. And so she said that it's just words. And she said it's words if you don't understand them. But the words that we have a very powerful
effect on
people. And so I think I love the spectrum, the connection. I'm just kind of connecting things. And how you said, you know, we're all here. And we won't go anywhere. Like, I know the Mars thing is in talks. But
really, moving over to Mars.
but really, we are all live in this home. And I think that the labels that we have are great. And we're all creating things from words to literal physical things, inventions that have impacted our lives and making our lives better. And however, for us, we're really there, like, how do you feel? What do you want to do? And I think that really connects with me because this is where I come in, and my opinion is that you have the right to do whatever you please with your life, because I don't think anyone should dominate and control what you feel like thinking and doing. At the end of the day, your actions, your thoughts are yours. And yes, and this is why it's a bit dangerous when we start watching movies and listening to things, because they really influence your being, and you can get lost with who you really want to be. And I think that's something that I really want to focus on with the youth, is saying, hey, it's good that you're watching all this media, but make sure you're not losing that voice inside you, because then you can get confused in a lot of areas. So thank you for that perspective. I really like that.
Yeah, thank you. Sorry, so right before, I know we're having a great conversation so far. I just need to play a quick PSA.
Oh, wonderful.
And we will be right back.
Looking for a way to make a local impact and take action against climate change in your community? The Center for Volunteer and Nonprofit Leadership, in partnership with CA Climate Action Corps, California Volunteers, Office of the Governor, has an ongoing climate action wildfire prevention project in the 4 counties that we serve: Marin, Napa, Solano, and Sonoma. The mission of this project is to engage community members in volunteer work to reduce wildfire risk in communities around the North Bay. Since September 2022, we have recruited over 500 climate volunteers. In Marin, CVNL has an ongoing wildfire prevention project called San Pedro Ridge Fire Safety. San Pedro Ridge Fire Safety is led by Robin Pendoli and is a collection of friends and neighbors from throughout the county who are working to protect neighborhoods throughout San Rafael from wildfire. Join them 2 Saturdays a month to pull invasive French broom and help our local woodlands get back to health. The CVNL Climate Impact Project is a great volunteer opportunity for students in need of community service hours. Go to volunteernow.org/climate-impact-project to sign up today.
All right. So welcome back to Tay Radio Marin. That was, again, our CVNL Wildfire PSA. For more information, you can DM us, or you can check the comments below. But yeah, we just got finished here with a great conversation with Alyssa. Thank you so much again for sharing your story. Now I wanted to actually spend the next half of the show talking about your experience with radio, the thing we're doing right now. So, yeah.
Yes. Yeah, our program director, Jeff, and I actually started at the same time, which was like a month or so before the pandemic began. And so it was very interesting because we came in being like, okay, here's this community radio station. Here's how everyone's been doing things in these exact ways, A, B, and C ways. And then the pandemic started, and we had to figure out how to do everything from home and how to get everything on the air 24 hours, 24/7 here. And throughout that process, we were able to like totally recreate a lot of systems and make it so we're able to do a lot more stuff. And so it's so cool, like, for having you all in here, you know, the replays that we do of your streamed programs.
Yeah.
You know, how long has that been going on?
So that's been going on for
5 years.
Yeah.
5 years.
It's been a 5-year.
That's so cool. 5 years. When's the 5-year anniversary?
So it's funny you bring that up.
Is there a debate?
No. It's just well, since we're not the first ones, we're like the second, I would say the second phase of like Tay Radio, and we missed our 5-year
anniversary.
birthday.
We just missed it.
We just completely
missed it.
And then she texted, no, you told us in person. Said we forgot the birthday of Tay Radio.
Because Annalee's been here the longest.
Oh.
But she wasn't the first one to start the Tay.
Yeah.
I've been here for around 3 years with Tay. So, yeah, it's been a while. But it was in May, our 5th anniversary.
Oh, that's so funny.
Yeah, I felt so bad because it was my fault for like not reminding, but yeah, hopefully next year we won't miss it.
A big 6-year birthday.
Yes.
Yeah, but I guess starting things off, what kind of how'd you get to KWMR? Like how'd you get here? Did you have experience with radio in the past? Like, yeah.
This is kind of fun to have these two conversations next to each other, because I grew up not really understanding how to communicate just in general. Like, I didn't know what was going on with me, whether it was like emotionally or like very literal things happening. I had a really hard time communicating what was going on. And I ended up doing a lot of visual arts because I was able to express myself more easily without words.
Okay.
And I kept doing that and doing that and doing that, you know, going to Marin School of the Arts to like keep doing that. And then I went to art school. And as I was in college in art school, all my artwork started like including just like words. And then I was like, you know, like with an ice block, like carving these words, then like on like big like letter presses, doing all these things with words. And we would have these really intense critiques where for me, communication was like a very scary thing, because it could mean that like I was experiencing, and this is very much like coming from Catholicism.
Yeah.
But like, you know, if I did something, I was constantly in fear of shame and like just shaming myself no matter what was going to happen. I was totally letting go of that now. It feels so nice.
Yeah.
But I was just really scared to communicate pretty much anything because of that shame and what could come up through communicating. And so having critiques of like, you know, putting up someone's painting on the wall, and we would all like as a class sit around and talk about this piece of artwork, about like what worked about it, what didn't work, how are these colors interacting, what it's like reminding people of, what it's like bringing up for them in their own lives, and getting into that. And a lot of the time I was always scared and like hot, sweaty, breaking out in hives, thinking that I was about to be shamed or like be like abused in some way, you know. And going through all those critiques over and over, I started realizing that there's nothing bad about having just conversations with people where you don't have agreements.
Absolutely.
And not realizing that nothing is wrong, you know, and everything just is. I started communicating. And what's hilarious is that now I'm directly involved in communications. So that's really how I sort of got here. And Amanda Eichstead, the executive director, her and I had been talking for a few years after I moved back from Washington. And the moment happened where it worked for me to come in and fill in for someone who was just on sabbatical for a while. And then I ended up just absolutely loving it and staying full time. And this is like, I want to be here for forever, you know?
Yeah.
And I am also taking voiceover classes because I want to do that separately for additional funds.
Mm-hmm.
So that's my jam.
I love what you said, how communicate. I had never really thought that I would be doing this work that I'm
right,
doing.
Yeah.
And I really connect with what you said about being a little bit afraid to say what you feel because of that ashamed or backlash that you get. And I think that's one of the biggest fears that I have in having these conversations in general, being on having, the podcast, the radio, because my fear is, what if it comes out not how my intention, but it comes out wrong and I hurt someone else, and like that is not what I'm for. But the more that I'm in this work, the more I notice that there's so much good in having conversations and expressing what you're feeling, and not in a way where you feel attacked, but more of like, hey, this is how I see it. So I love that connection that you mentioned, and I'm glad that you're here, because I think every single one of us has different stories, different cultures, and that can connect with other people that can inspire them to pursue whether communications or something else. Mm-hmm. But your story is very interesting, that you were into arts and then you went to communications. And usually communication has a bad representation. Everybody thinks it's just public speaking. But it's more than that.
Oh, way more than
it's
that,
like
yeah.
There's so much to it. So it's interesting how you kind of went in here.
Yeah.
Do you have anything to add?
And for me, also, I grew up very shy. I'm still naturally shy. But I think growing up and not talking that much, public speaking, I hated public speaking. But I think through Tay helped me be more open and talk about my perspective as well. Because I know, for everyone has unique perspectives, and it's important to have everyone have a voice and speak what they feel. But yeah, I like how you transitioned as well. And I was just wondering, how were you introduced to the radio? How were you introduced to this location?
Yeah, well, this radio station has been here since I was a kid, which is crazy.
I think 98, right? I heard from Jeff it was 98.
Then yes.
Maybe.
Then yes.
I'm all,
we should probably have that posted somewhere in here.
Is he here? He can nod to us.
Yes.
Right.
Jeff, can you give us a little? Yeah, so I have been on the radio when I was a kid, for different stuff, if things were happening in the community, which is so cool that we have this radio station. It's it really is the voice of the community, and I so love that it's just anyone can be a part of this work. Yeah. It's so awesome. So I was doing, what was I doing? I was at I was doing a play in Inverness, because they used to do Shakespeare outside below St. Columbus Church in Inverness. And I was doing that, and our executive director, Amanda Eichstead, was going to be in that play as well. And we were chatting, and it just sort of aligned. We work really well together. I love working with everyone here. It's the best team. And yeah, it all just sort of clicked. And then it wasn't till, after working here for a year or so, that I realized that I was so afraid of communication, so long ago. And now I'm just blah, 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 and trying to get other people to talk all the time and get out in the world. And yeah, so that's how it was, just having, this station existing and really being a constant part of the community, and then having a conversation with Amanda where everything just aligned.
Yeah, because
awesome.
Totally. Because for me, it's I graduated from SF State with an emphasis in audio engineering. Because my interest is all this stuff, microphones, recording music, especially. Like that was like what I was thinking I wanted to really do, is like have my own studio to record music. And at that time when I graduated, I didn't really like listen to podcasts or listen to radio at all. So, when I got the job offer here, for Tay and for the Multicultural Center of Marin, I was like, well, I can like help set up, like podcast pretty simple. Podcast pretty simple to set up and record and all that, and radio. I mean, like, I don't know. It hadn't crossed my mind. But then when I started really doing the shows with Annalie and Santi, because they were there, they were there before me for Tay, I really started like understanding how much of an impact it can actually have, and how cool it is actually to just be able to like have these recorded conversations that again enhance you. And then something that I think I always get from a lot of the guests that we've had, and it's really amazing to say that, because we've had so many amazing guests,
many,
including you,
oh
Alyssa. Thanks. Is like every time I think that every time they come on our show, they're always like, you know what, as soon as I put on those headphones, it's like I'm transported to like just a completely new world. Like it's just like almost like you're like listening to your inner thoughts out loud, right? And I'm just like, yeah, that's how it feels. Like once you put on the headphones, once you have the microphone, once you're surrounded by people, it's just like, it's just an energy that I think, I mean, you could probably relate, all of you can relate to this, like an energy you can't feel like anything else, you know what I mean? So
yeah, and there's a lot of growth to it. Like I mentioned in the beginning of the show, for me, being in this type of work has really educated me a lot more than just listening to other people. So I think there's a very big difference when you just kind of hear rather than actually talk from someone who's in the field that they're in, or their stories. You get to learn more, and I think for me, that's where I listened to shows before and I'm like, oh wait, that show taught me so much, and like now if you ask me certain questions, like I might have a different perspective on it, and that to me is very valuable because it helps me grow each time. And that's, for me, this type of work, it teaches me and shows me a lot of things and connects with me, and I love that. With that being said, I want to hear more about your show, because I heard you have two, if I'm correct.
Yeah.
So kind of like what do you do on each one, and just kind of hear your story in those, how you have your own.
Yeah, my partner and I have a sports hour show, which is new, and we do it every other week on Tuesdays.
Can you explain what a sports hour show is? Because I'm not very sports I don't know.
At this point, my partner Annie loves the Warriors, and so it's a lot of like,
woo, Warriors, baby.
It's a lot of like trying to talk about other sports, but then we always end up talking about the Warriors for too long.
I mean, you just can't. Man.
Yeah, it's just year round, really, So, and we're trying to get more of the local sports on, like, the CYO and, like other stuff like that. Because I think it'd be very fun for people to be able to hear some of those games or just like know the stats. But what's interesting is that we have been finding that a lot of those schedules now are only shared with the parents and kids, like, so that way it's not like a public event sort of a thing, which is interesting.
Yeah.
So we're just navigating what that looks like and trying to build relationships where we can. And so it's like a new thing, and it's really my partner Annie's show, and I'm like the co-host who has never really been that into sports. But like, during the pandemic, some people got really into baking bread, and I got really, really very into the Warriors. I was like all about the bubble. Okay. I was like, I'm here for the bubble. Like so I was not a sports person before that. I was like, I hope you have a good time. But now
the Warriors just have that.
Magic.
They have that magic, exactly. Once you watch like two Warriors games, you're like hooked. Especially this playoff season. Oh
yeah.
God, what a playoff season.
Yeah.
But we didn't make it, but it's all right. Because you know what? We've won whole bunch of other championships.
And we have a lot of growth to go through this summer.
Yeah.
It's going to be fantastic. There's going to be a lot of changes that really pull us together in this totally new and transformed way.
Yeah. Did you have anything to add, Annalie?
I love how you use that, like, you include yourselves too in the team too.
Oh,
'cause it's
absolutely.
like a family right there. But yeah, I grew up watching the Warriors too, but like I'm not like really into it, but I played basketball too, and it's really nice to hear you guys, you know, cheering up for the Warriors. But since you have the sports hour, I think it's called, right?
Uh-huh.
And then what's the other one?
So my other show is called Feel Like I Do, and it's a 2-hour music show. It's very fun.
Oh.
And I try to play a lot of queer musicians and artists, and it's like experimental jazz and some sort of like indie rock stuff, and a lot of like beats, and it's a lot of things that, like, if you're cleaning your house, you'll clean your house more quickly and in a way more fun way. Or if you're like dancing by yourself in the car, like your car ride will like go by in like 2 seconds because you're just like So that's my show. And
yeah, sorry, no, I've tuned in a couple times.
Oh, thank you.
it. Yeah, and like I said, your music diversity is like all over the place, and I really appreciate that. I think I don't know, you had like a couple like vaporwave-esque tracks as well, and like I think anyone who's into that kind of genre, I think is a cool person in my book.
Thanks.
So yeah, just hearing that was like big.
I feel so out of the bubble because I'm like, I don't know about
like
sports and that music.
But that's so cool. So you highlighted a lot of queer artists, and I noticed that too as I was listening. It's like, oh yeah, like I feel like there's like a pattern here that she's trying to do, and yeah, you're totally doing it. So that's so cool. Yeah,
that's interesting. The way you use your platform to communicate through music.
Yeah, and I haven't done a lot of talking in the music shows because like sometimes I'll be like driving here on my way to work, and I'm like, oh yeah, I'm gonna say this cool moving thing that's gonna like change one person's life, and then I get here and I'm like, this song speaks for itself, like like so like so dramatic.
That's what you do. Oh, okay, okay.
I totally have this intention of like saying a lot more words, and then I always stop myself because I'm like, no, this song is exactly what it needs to be.
And I think music, art sometimes it expresses things that we might not know how to say it in a way. So I understand what you mean by like, oh, it speaks to itself, because there's music that can really, I don't know, there's a lot of artists who have a way of expressing themselves, and that's just sometimes it's like, oh, this is how I feel, and it represents how you feel. So art has a good way of expressing what we can't express.
Yeah. And like I just want everyone, like I love people so much, and I just want everyone to like have the best time. I just want everyone to have the best time. And if someone could be tuning in somewhere for that little period and some music that maybe they're not totally into, but they're like, oh, hey, wait a minute. And they could just like get some stuff off their shoulders and like, wiggle a little, like, love that. For any of the listeners that are listening out there who are over the age of 21, on Juneteenth, my friend and I are actually going to be DJing an event at the Western Saloon here in Point Reyes Station. It's going to be a queer night reparations dance party.
Oh, that's so sick.
And so all the money is going to go to just different people of color in the Bay Area who are seeking money for their transitions.
That's incredible.
And yeah, we like consider giving to like different nonprofits, and we're like, yeah, no, but we could just give this money to people directly, which is what we should really be doing.
Interesting.
So.
Sorry, where's it going to be at?
At the Western Saloon.
Western Saloon, all right.
Here in downtown Point Reyes Station.
Perfect.
And I had a question that Javier was saying about vests. What was it?
Vests?
Vaporwave.
What vaporwave is?
What is it?
Maybe we could find a song to close out with, possibly.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I have a couple. Actually, no, all the vaporwave songs. Vaporwave basically, and in essence, it kind of started like as an internet movement where it was like, basically taking music, like old 80s, 70s, like pop music, and people would just like slow it down, like heavily slow it down.
Oh, like slowed motion music?
Yeah, so you know how slowed and reverb music is like super big now, like for popular songs? Basically, Vaporwave was doing that like years ago with like 80s and 70s inspired music. And it's just like slowing it down, but there's like more nuance to it. Like there's artists out there that like chop it up and like really like, you know, play around and make it really sound kind of distorted, but at the same time make it feel nostalgic. Like you're you
that's
know.
a good word. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So
Like it's like electronic music, but using like a lot of samples.
yeah.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
Or like really playing out a sample. Like it's just, I really like sampled hip hop, so that's why I like naturally really liked Vaporwave. And then another big so Vaporwave has like other genres to it as well, like future funk, which I love. Future funk, like future funk is like that's like taking like typically a lot of it is like Japanese like funk music, like city pop is what it's called. And on TikTok now, like city pop songs are like super popular as TikTok.
Yeah, they're like most of the trending audios, which is so funny.
Because like again, I was like,
I don't know. I'm like,
I was like 15 or no, I was 15. I was a freshman in high school when I first discovered Vaporwave, and then I discovered future funk, and then I was like, whoa, this is so cool. But like the community was like so like it was on the internet. It was all over the internet. And then like after high school and then TikTok came around, everyone started singing like all these city pop songs. Like, oh, I know that song. But it's like I know like the altered version of that song. You know what I mean? So
interesting. Okay.
I did not know that. I deleted TikTok after my finals. And I haven't downloaded it since, so I'm not up to date. But yeah, thank you for explaining.
Yeah.
Since we do have a little bit of time left, is there anything that we did not cover that we would like to express?
I am so glad that you all are here doing this live at KWMR.
Yeah, I mean, it feels to me, it's been feeling fine.
It feels
it's
so
like,
natural. Like I feel like you all are gonna like go out to your desk or something.
Right.
It's like and maybe to bring things back to the beginning of the show, as if we're just getting off of the Ferris wheel ride. We're actually going to be at Marin County Fair as the radio station on LGBTQ plus day.
Oh.
And that will be on July
Just a
Sunday,
such a natural voice.
July 2nd.
Ooh, right before my birthday.
Oh yeah, it is his
July
birthday.
3rd, Monday, July 3rd is my birthday. So
Okay.
can't
So-
forget it.
So what will you guys be doing there?
We will be playing some music. We do have a programmer of ours who puts together some awesome music. He's going to do a set at some point, and we're going to be running around interviewing all the vendors about
That's so
what they
cool.
do, and then the next day we're going to have a show here on the radio of all those sound bits. So I think it should be cool.
That's so awesome. We got to tune
that's
in. So
interesting.
when can people tune in on Monday? For that,
I'm
you know?
uncertain, but I will let the world know. And it was so fun being here with you all today. Thank you so much.
Yeah, no, and thank you. Did you guys have any other last words that you guys want to say? We have like about 2 minutes left.
Well,
More like 10 seconds.
Oh, really?
Yes.
Even though we started at 2. Okay.
Okay.
Okay, I understand. Sorry. Oh, we still got.
Well, for me, I think that this is such a
We're done?
there's a
Sorry, I'm confused now.
That's okay.
There's live radio here. Woo!
Just saying, as long as we do a station ID at 4, you guys can continue on a little bit. I think.
Oh my gosh,
yeah.
this just in from Jeff Manson. We get to go past the 4 o'clock mark.
okay.
You are tuned in to KWMR 90.5 in Point Reyes Station, 89.9 in Bolinas, and 92.3 in the San Geronimo Valley. Back to you, Javier.
Yeah. So thank you so much again for tuning in. This was Tay Radio Marin, and it's our first time ever being here at KWMR. I mean, how did you guys just feel being here?
I mean, this is very new to us. I think our setup is very different, and it kind of like threw me off at the very beginning because I was like, what are we doing in a way? But your energy, I can feel it from all the way over here, and I can see your excitement, and you're very passionate about what you do, and I think we always need people like you to, you know, encourage us and keep going. I think the conversation that we had today, I definitely think we were cut short because I felt like I wanted to learn more about you.
That's how
and
radio
your story.
always is.
It just feels it's so
time.
short. I feel like we have so much, and it's very tricky because we want to hear your story, but also what you do. So balancing those two is very tricky. And any interview that we have, but I do want to emphasize what you said today, that growing up, it might feel very confusing at times, and but just kind of figuring out different things you want to do is okay, and having that available to you is good, so that when as you grow older, you can kind of discover new things that you would have never known that you like. So for me, on my take on the conversation, it's that for the youth out there, it's if you feel lost and confused, know that I think we are all lost and confused, and so we're all figuring it out together. So not judging one another, but being more of supportive of each other is very important.
Absolutely.
For
right,
me, if I can have
you're
some
good.
time
Yeah, I'm so glad that we have more time. It's very exciting.
Yeah, well, I think for me, this experience was really nice, especially like live on radio. Like for us, it's like live, but like not on the radio, because we usually send it on Monday, and so it's very different. And I think for me, it's like less nerve-wracking because we have you here, like you have it all over control. And I like how to see like how you know how to work like this stuff, which I don't know. I just like do more of the talking instead of the cameras and the audio. But I want to appreciate your time here too, because these topics are pretty hard to talk about, especially like about like, you know, like from my perspective as a Christian, it can be like kind of like, you know, like kind of
like a taboo.
Kind of hard to talk about, or, you know, saying like, where is my boundary of where I can talk and where I cannot, but also like what Santi has said about like, you know, talking and not trying to like, you know, like offend the other person as well, at least for me. And I want to clarify, like from the Christian perspective, like there's some Christians that don't represent us either. Like they're very hateful towards LGBTQ, and for me, I just want to take this time to explain more that LGBTQ is like, as for us, like it's like a sin, but like it's like everyone is a sinner too, if that makes sense. And we don't want to like express that as like we're hating on other people, because all of us are sinners, even me. So that's my point of view, and I think even what Santi has said at the end, that we all have to support one another, especially because we're all exploring what we believe and what we value. And for me, that's also part of my journey as well. Like, where's my boundary? And can
I say something too?
Yeah, go ahead.
What if there wasn't a boundary? Like, you were Christian and also there wasn't a boundary? Because that sounds like,
can you
like
explain
a box.
What the boundary means, or like what you refer to that?
Yeah, I think I don't understand what is the boundary. Because I don't think that, you know, I feel like people can figure things out however they want to figure things out, talk however they want to talk. Like, is that is the boundary you're describing like having like feeling like you're going to offend someone or something like that? Or is it like what exactly do you mean? What is the boundary?
Well, thank you for asking. I think for me personally as a Christian, I always go to the standard of the Bible and my relationship with God. And so for me, if I feel condemned of something, it's like the Holy Spirit telling me, this is probably what you shouldn't be doing. And so that's my standard. I think Santi, you can add on that.
I was
said it before.
So. I think I was a bit confused with the boundary part, but I'll just kind of share from my experience and the LGBTQ plus. Like I mentioned at the beginning of the show, especially for my family, like we weren't even exposed to seeing like people of color. Like we were people of color, but you know what I mean. So growing up in a different culture, like you're experiencing and you're figuring out new things. But there's a lot of things in my culture that I value and that's very close to me and that I feel from the bottom of my heart that it makes me a good person. However, but you're exposing to new things and you can kind of get confused. And this is what I was talking about confusion earlier, when you can get confused with different beliefs and perspectives and you can get lost, and I think it can happen to anyone. You have this kind of like culture shock in a way. So for me, my boundary, when I mean my boundary, is saying, how do I respect your perspective and your opinion while I respect my personal perspective and opinion. That's what boundary is to me. My boundary is not saying like, you don't align with mine, don't come into my life. Like that has never been what I mean by boundary. I think for me, it's I will always lead with love. And my God and my faith that I have in God is I am just going to share and show the love that he has given me. And so if you come into my life and I meet someone who's completely different from my perspective, I do not feel that the love that God gave me is saying, I don't ever want to talk to you, or giving that type of energy. And it's more of like, okay, I have no right to say in giving you an opinion to your life. It's yours, just like mine. And so for me, I think growing up has been really tricky. And if I'm very honest with you, it's been really tricky to say, this is mine, but being afraid to say that this is what I believe and not feeling that shame and hate. And I realized the other person feels the exact same thing. So for me, I think it's more of just finding a balance and respecting one another and really supporting each other. I think I'm really pro humanity. You know, that's where I lead in and towards love. And so I don't know if that kind of explained what I meant by, or what I interpreted boundary in, but it's just really that I think we all make mistakes. We all have, I think naturally humans have this, I don't know, we just want to be right all the time. Like, this is my way.
Yeah, it's like a survival thing or something.
And I feel like that causes a lot of damage. And I really do not want to be the cause of someone committing, suicide or feeling shameful. I'm just like, you know what? If it's for you, I mean, go. It's you. It's not your choice. It's your choice. And I think that's what a lot of people misunderstand. In like, if I think about like my faith in Christianity, they think that, oh, you don't like us, like you don't like me as a human. And I'm like, no. Like, let's back up for a second. I have my faith, but I totally respect what you're doing. It's your life. And so I just wish that we can reciprocate that. And so I don't know. It's kind of really hard to explain in like what my head thinks and what comes out.
No, that totally makes sense. Sense. Is that what you were?
Yeah, I was trying to remember like what she was going off, because I kind of resonated with that too, about like finding that boundary of how do I respect myself and also respect others, because it's sometimes hard to be a people pleaser when that shouldn't be the case for anyone. Everyone should have their own identity and have their own beliefs and be firm in that. You know what I'm saying? Yeah.
And it's part of why I think we talked about this with Javier, and I have always been afraid to have these type of conversations and get involved in these very controversial topics in many different places.
And it's crazy to think that they're controversial in the first place. You know what I mean?
Yeah, so I talk to Javier all the time, and I'm like, I always tell him, because I'm like, I don't want to be disrespectful to our guests, but I also don't want to disrespect myself. And I think one thing he has always made me feel safe, and he's always told me, it's like, hey, we can have this conversation and not feel attacked, but feel more of an educational, and that has always been kind of like the energy we want to give. And so the fact that you're here and I can express my feeling, and you asking questions and me asking questions, to me it's I want to be an example of how we can live together, rather than
a beautiful example.
Rather than like, because I think it's like I said, we're just naturally, as humans, we want to be right all the time, and or like you're wrong, I'm right. But in reality, like if everyone's wrong, no one's right, and if everyone's right, no one's wrong. So how do you grow? So for me, it's just I appreciate your time and your story, getting to learn from you, and you had different perspectives, which to me I was like, oh, I didn't think about it that way. So it kind of educates me a lot more, and it's my favorite way of learning rather than just being an observer. I don't know if that makes sense.
Yeah.
All right. So I think that's just about the time we got left. But thank you all for sharing. And again, thank you so much, Alyssa, for making the time to be with us tonight, or this afternoon. We really are appreciative of that, and we'll catch you all next week.
Before we finish, do you want? I want to make sure we give you time so that you can list your shows where people can contact you, any resources that you have before we end, just to kind of close that, so that our viewers have a way to kind of branch out of this conversation. My shows play, my music show is every Tuesday from 6:30 to 8:30 here on KWMR, which you can tune in or stream live at kwmr.org. And my sports show is every other Tuesday from noon until 1. So it's not tomorrow, but the next Tuesday that will be on. And really, I do a lot of different things in life, and the easiest way to find all those things is by going to my Instagram, which is alyssa.jane.tanner, and there in my link tree there's links to all sorts of things.
Perfect. All right, so that was Tay Radio Marin. Thank you all so much for listening, and we will catch you all next week. Take care, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.